Who owns America's debt? Ask almost anyone, and you get the same answer, usually within a second, usually with total confidence. China, and for more than a decade that was right. Then it stopped being right, and nothing announced the day it happened. This is the pile everyone argues about. It has tripled since the financial crisis, and the order of who holds it changed far more than the total ever did. So it's worth asking the question properly and answering it off the actual table. 3 candidates, each one is an answer a lot of people would give, and each one has a real reason behind it. China, the country that sold America more goods than anyone in history and was paid in dollars. Japan, the oldest and quietest buyer in the market. Saudi Arabia, oil priced in dollars, and dollars parked where dollars go. Pick one before the chart appears, out loud or in the comments. A guess you actually committed to is the only one you'll remember getting wrong. One of these 3 holds nearly 8 times what another one does, and by the end, the honest answer won't be any of the 3. Saudi Arabia goes first, and it isn't close. For every dollar of treasuries Riyadh holds, the country at the top of this table holds nearly 8. Which leaves the 2 that people actually argue about, and the case for China is much stronger than anyone who already knows the answer tends to admit. At the start of the century, China's holdings were a rounding error. Then it sold America more than any country had ever sold anyone, was paid in dollars, and put those dollars into the deepest bond market on earth. And in September 2008, the month Lehman Brothers failed, China passed Japan and became the largest foreign holder of American government debt. That wasn't a talking point, that was the table. And it kept it for 10 years and 8 months with 2 brief interruptions. China sat at the top of that list. A generation of arguments about American debt rested on something that was, at the time, true. Which is exactly why the belief outlived the fact. It was accurate for longer than most people have been paying attention to the question, and then it quietly wasn't. China's reported holdings peaked in late 2013. Then they turned, and they have been turning for 12 years. The drop since that peak is so large that China has shed almost as much as it still holds. Which puts Japan at the top. If the guess was China, it was the wrong answer by 2 places. And look at the middle one. 12 years ago, British holdings were a rounding error next to China's. They have multiplied more than 6 times since. Nobody wrote a single headline about Britain buying up America's debt, and there is a reason nobody did. So that is the answer, Japan. Most people get it wrong, except that isn't the answer either. That phrase has been sitting in the corner of every chart in this video. It has been doing far more work than it looks like it's doing. That table does not measure who owns American government debt. It measures where the bonds are kept. And this is not an outside critic making the point. It is the US Treasury, on its own frequently asked questions page, in plain language. Treasury's own worked example. A German investor buys a Treasury bond and leaves it with a Swiss bank. The German owns it. Switzerland gets the credit. There is an official name for the problem, custodial bias, and Treasury publishes the list of places where it happens worst. Which explains Britain. There was no British buying spree. London is simply where the world keeps things. Japan's trillion is mostly Japanese savings. Britain's is mostly other people's money with a London address. Those 2 numbers sit in the same column of the same table, and they are not the same kind of number. And then there is this one. On the official table, the Cayman Islands hold a few $100 billion. On a different form, filed by hedge funds to a different American regulator, funds domiciled there report more than 4 times as much. Economists at the Federal Reserve looked at that gap, about $1.4 trillion of it, and concluded that the largest foreign holder of American government debt is the Cayman Islands, not China, not Japan. A Caribbean territory standing in for funds that could be anywhere on Earth. The cause isn't a country at all, it's a trade. Over 3 years, funds based there bought a net $1.2 trillion of treasuries, 37% of everything America newly issued in notes and bonds, and nearly as much as every other foreign investor on the planet put together. Which leaves China, and the honest answer there is that nobody outside Beijing knows. Brad Setzer at the Council on Foreign Relations has spent years trying to find China in this data. His method hands a fifth of the treasuries booked in Belgium, Luxembourg, Britain, and France back to China. Do that, and China never fell to third at all. It has been second the whole time. Assume more and it comes first. And Setzer is careful about his own work. He calls the adjustment as much an art as a science, so nobody should file those figures as facts. What they do establish is narrower and more useful. The official table is not a ranking of ownership, and everyone who has looked at it closely says so out loud. His other finding is the quieter one. China's American holdings have stayed at roughly half its reserves throughout. The address changed far more than the amount did. Pull back far enough, though, and the argument turns out to be the wrong size. Foreign holdings really did triple over the long run. That was true at the start of this video, and it is still true. Across the last decade, they rose about half again. But America's own holdings, its banks, its funds, its pension schemes, its central bank, its households, nearly tripled in those same 10 years. So the foreign share fell from about half at its 2008 peak to roughly 30% today. Foreign creditors didn't walk away from America. America simply outbought them. Set against all of it, China's line on the table comes to a little over 2% of the debt, even on Setzer's most aggressive adjustment under 4. The question this video opened with assumed the answer would be a country. It isn't one. The largest holder of American government debt is Americans. One more then, same rules as before, commit to an answer before you look it up. Which country generates the most solar power per person? Almost nobody gets this one either.